State of Cannabis.
This is the State of Cannabis News Digest, a roundup of this week's key developments in the cannabis industry.
It's Saturday at 9 a.m., and this is your weekly cannabis policy update. This week, federal lawmakers are trying to keep medical cannabis out of workers' compensation reimbursement, even if marijuana is rescheduled. California is testing artificial intelligence as a guardrail for cannabis packaging that may appeal to children, while lawmakers there consider whether dispensaries should be allowed to serve customers at drive-through windows. Illinois is moving toward a sweeping rewrite of hemp and cannabis rules. North Carolina is weighing new age limits for hemp and kratom. Texas hemp businesses are facing renewed enforcement over high THC products. And in Kentucky, a medical cannabis access dispute has turned into a fight over executive power. We'll also look at Pennsylvania's stalled cannabis overhaul, Rhode Island's restarted retail licensing process, and Virginia's adult use market debate as it moves into budget negotiations. This broadcast uses AI-generated voices to help make the show more clear, varied, and dynamic. The reporting, writing, and editorial choices are guided by our news team. The voices help us present the program with more range, pace, and personality. Stay with us for the full stories and what they could mean for patients, businesses, regulators, and consumers. And if you're new here, subscribe to the podcast. If you already listen, please hit the like button.
And now here is the deeper look at the key events in the cannabis world this week.
We begin in Washington, where federal workers could remain unable to receive workers' compensation reimbursement for medical cannabis, even if marijuana is moved to Schedule III. The House Appropriations Committee approved a fiscal year 2027 labor HHS spending bill by a vote of 34 to 28. A subcommittee had earlier advanced the measure 11 to 7. One section of the bill prohibits the Department of Labor from authorizing, providing, reimbursing, or otherwise recognizing marijuana or any cannabis-derived substance as a compensable treatment under a federal workers' compensation program. That language specifically covers the Federal Employees' Compensation Act. It is also written to remain in effect regardless of any change to marijuana status under the Controlled Substances Act. That distinction matters. Moving marijuana to Schedule III would recognize accepted medical uses, but it would not automatically make state dispensary products eligible for federal benefit payments. An injured federal employee could live in a medical cannabis state and receive a recommendation from a health professional, yet still have to pay for cannabis personally. The committee-approved bill also directs the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to complete a report on cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, a condition associated with prolonged high-potency cannabis use and severe nausea and vomiting. Other provisions restrict funding for syringe purchases and supervised consumption sites while maintaining support for naloxone. The workers' compensation restriction is not yet law. The bill still has to move through the House, the Senate, negotiations between the chambers, and presidential review. Its language could change before that process ends.
In California, regulators are turning to artificial intelligence to address a difficult cannabis compliance question. When does product packaging become too attractive to children? The Department of Cannabis Control launched its beta Cannabis Product Image Analyzer on June 8th. Licensed operators can upload a photograph or screenshot of a package, and the system reviews it for potentially prohibited features. Those features can include cartoons, depictions of people under 21, designs that imitate candy packaging, and words such as candy, candy, or candies. The department says it will not retain the uploaded images or the summaries produced by the tool. But businesses should not treat the result as state approval. Regulators say the analyzer may miss some concerns. A package described as likely compliant could still become the subject of an enforcement action. The same image could also receive different findings on different days. Lighting, image quality, angle, and incomplete photographs may affect the result. The launch follows an August 2025 report from the California State Auditor. That review said the state's rules were not specific enough and could lead to subjective or inconsistent decisions. Auditors identified possible violations in 14 of 40 products they examined, although the Department of Cannabis Control disagreed with some of their findings. 2 disputed packages were later submitted to the new analyzer. One featured an illustrated ice cream cone, and the other showed a brightly designed, fruity, crispy rice edible. The tool described both as potentially non-compliant. Those findings are not legal rulings. Still, they may give manufacturers and brands an early warning before a package is printed or sent to retailers. For consumers and medical cannabis patients, the result may be packaging that looks less like candy, desserts, or familiar children's snacks. For businesses, the larger uncertainty remains. The AI can offer a warning, but the licensee carries the compliance risk.
Staying in California, lawmakers have moved a cannabis drive-through proposal one step closer to a full Senate vote. On June 8th, the Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee approved Assembly Bill 2697 by a vote of 7-3. The measure, sponsored by Democratic Assemblymember Gail Pellerin, has already passed the Assembly and now goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee. AB 2697 would allow licensed cannabis retailers and storefront microbusinesses to sell products to customers waiting in vehicles, but businesses would need approval from their local city or county. Most transactions would have to take place through a fixed-pane security window equipped with a drawer or another secure transfer system built into the licensed premises. Supporters say the proposal could improve access for seniors, veterans, medical cannabis patients, and people with chronic health conditions that make it difficult to leave a vehicle. Delivery is legal in California, but it is not available in every service area. Industry representatives also point to worker safety. Dispensaries may already offer curbside pickup, which can require employees to carry cannabis products and sometimes cash into a parking lot. A drive-through could keep the employee inside the secured building, but the California Narcotic Officers Association opposes the measure. Its representative told lawmakers that workers may have more difficulty checking identification or recognizing signs of intoxication through a drive-through window. At this point, no comparative data has been presented showing whether drive-through transactions are safer or riskier than sales at an indoor counter. And passage would not bring drive-through service to every California dispensary. Local governments would retain control, and businesses would need suitable property, construction approval, and a secure transaction system. The committee vote advances the bill, but it does not change current law. AB 2697 must clear the remaining Senate process before it could reach the governor.
In Illinois, lawmakers have sent Governor J.B. Pritzker a bill that combines a new hemp regulatory system with a long list of cannabis policy changes. Senate Bill 3222 passed the House 77-31 and the Senate 47-10 before reaching the governor on June 10th. The proposal would create the Illinois Hemp Act. Businesses would need state authorization or licenses to manufacture, produce, distribute, or sell hemp products. Intoxicating hemp products would be limited to licensed cannabis dispensaries. That means gas stations, convenience stores, and smoke shops could no longer carry them. Sales to anyone under 21 would be prohibited, and businesses could not market those products to children. The state would also gain authority over penalties, recalls, and enforcement. Non-intoxicating hemp products, such as CBD oils and topicals, would remain in a separate market, but businesses would face uniform licensing and production standards. The cannabis provisions are also broad. The bill would raise the adult use flower possession limit from 30 grams to 60 grams and expand automatic expungement eligibility to the same amount. Medical cannabis patients could shop at any dispensary, rather than only at locations designated for medical sales. The bill also addresses dispensary drive-thrus and curbside pickup, social equity loans and grants, cannabis transportation services, and canopy expansion for craft growers. Supporters say the package could reduce some regulatory burdens for small and social equity cannabis companies, while keeping intoxicating hemp products away from minors. But hemp retailers currently selling those products outside the cannabis system could face licensing costs, inventory changes, or the loss of that part of their business. Most of the measure would take effect immediately if signed. The new Illinois Hemp Act and repeal of the current Industrial Hemp Act would take effect on November 12, 2026.
In North Carolina, lawmakers are making another attempt to restrict young people's access to intoxicating hemp products, this time by pairing hemp with kratom. On June 10th, a House committee advanced a rewritten version of Senate Bill 59. The measure would prohibit anyone under 21 from buying, receiving, or possessing covered hemp-derived consumables. That includes products such as THC gummies, drinks, and some vape products. Businesses could not knowingly sell the products to someone under 21. They would have to examine identification when there are reasonable grounds to believe a buyer is underage. Violations would be Class 2 misdemeanors. Fines would begin at $500 and reach $1,500 after repeated offenses. Supporters describe the bill as a basic safeguard in a state that lacks a universal minimum purchasing age for many intoxicating hemp products. Lawmakers cited reports of teenagers becoming ill after buying THC products and cases involving products that allegedly exceeded legal THC limits. But the proposal is narrower than earlier bills. It does not establish a complete licensing, testing, packaging, or labeling system, and its Senate prospects are uncertain. Senate Leader Phil Berger says he would personally prefer to ban the products temporarily, then decide which ones should be permitted. The state debate is also running into a federal deadline. A new federal hemp definition based on total THC is scheduled to take effect November 12th. North Carolina's age limit bill, if passed, would take effect December 1st.
In Texas, hemp businesses are again facing enforcement of rules that could remove many flower products, pre-rolls, and concentrates from store shelves. The 15th Court of Appeals lifted a lower court injunction that had temporarily blocked the state's total THC regulations. The rules were supposed to take effect March 31st, but a series of court orders caused enforcement to move back and forth. The regulations focus on THCA, a cannabinoid that is not intoxicating before heating, but converts into delta-9 THC when a product is burned or smoked. State attorneys call THCA-rich flower marijuana in waiting. Under the total THC approach, regulators may count the delta-9 THC that the product can produce after heating, not only the amount present when it sits on a store shelf. That change could disqualify many popular hemp flower products. The rules also require product testing and child-resistant packaging. Licensing will cost much more. The available figures differ on the exact retailer fee, but both describe increases from a few $100s to several thousand. Manufacturer fees are described as rising to $10,000. Industry plaintiffs say the rules will force businesses to discard inventory and may drive stores out of business. They also argue that the fees amount to an unconstitutional occupation tax. The state says the regulations are a public safety necessity. The latest ruling does not settle that dispute. It only allows enforcement while the lawsuit moves forward. A trial on the merits is scheduled to begin July 27th in Travis County, and further appeals may follow.
In Kentucky, a dispute over who qualifies for medical cannabis is creating new uncertainty in the state's young program. On June 9th, Republican House Majority Whip Jason Nemes asked Attorney General Russell Coleman to prevent state agencies from following an executive order issued by Democratic Governor Andy Beshear 1 week earlier. Bashir's order directs the Office of Medical Cannabis to clarify access for patients with 15 serious conditions. They include terminal illness, sickle cell anemia, ALS, Parkinson's disease, HIV, AIDS, Crohn's disease, severe arthritis, fibromyalgia, and glaucoma. Nemes says the order unlawfully expands the qualifying condition list after lawmakers declined to do so. He told the committee that organizations and cannabis licensees participating in the expansion should be prosecuted and lose their licenses. Bashir's office offers a different interpretation. It says the order does not create new eligibility. Instead, it clarifies that patients with these illnesses may qualify through conditions already covered by Kentucky's 2023 law, particularly chronic or severe pain. The administration says the final medical decision still belongs to a doctor or advanced practice registered nurse. Coleman did not directly respond to the prosecution request. He acknowledged Nemes's comments, but announced no investigation or enforcement policy. That leaves patients, practitioners, regulators, and cannabis businesses between competing messages. One side says state agencies are clarifying the law. The other says following that guidance could warrant prosecution. No court challenge, attorney general opinion, or enforcement case has been reported. So the central legal question, whether the order expands the law or merely explains it, remains unresolved.
In Pennsylvania, the latest attempt to reorganize cannabis regulation has failed, at least for now. On June 10th, the state Senate rejected Senate Bill 49, sponsored by Republican Senator Dan Laughlin. The official bill record lists the vote as 29 to 21, although another account gives a 27 to 23 tally. The measure would have moved Pennsylvania's medical marijuana program from the Department of Health to a 7-member Cannabis Control Board. That board would have managed permits, product testing, advertising, labeling, seed-to-sale tracking, transportation, distribution, and enforcement. The bill also would have created patient assistance funding and required a medical professional to be available whenever a dispensary was open. But hemp restrictions became a major source of opposition. SB 49 would have sharply limited intoxicating hemp products. Laughlin said those rules were needed to protect children from untested products. Hemp business owners said the proposal offered no realistic licensing path and could close companies selling hemp-infused drinks and other products. They favored age limits, inspections, and seller regulation instead. The bill also became caught in Pennsylvania's adult use legalization debate. It would not have legalized recreational marijuana, but Laughlin wanted the state to establish a regulator before legalization. Governor Josh Shapiro's administration opposed the bill as drafted. It said Pennsylvania needs a comprehensive plan that creates a competitive adult use market, protects medical patients, and regulates hemp intoxicants. Several Democratic co-sponsors voted no. Some wanted legalization or marijuana record relief included. The Senate adopted a motion to reconsider after the defeat. Laughlin says he hopes to negotiate and try again, but no new vote has been announced.
In Rhode Island, the state is restarting its cannabis retail licensing process after a residency rule brought the system to a halt in federal court. Governor Dan McKee signed Senate Bill 3313 on June 10th. The law removes a requirement that recreational cannabis businesses be majority owned by Rhode Island residents. 3 federal lawsuits challenge that rule under the Dormant Commerce Clause, which generally prevents states from discriminating against interstate commerce. On April 8th, a federal judge issued an injunction that stopped regulators from reviewing or awarding licenses. That left about 100 applicants waiting for 20 available retail licenses. Some businesses continued paying rent on storefronts they could not open. Under the new law, the original retail and social equity application processes are void. The Cannabis Control Commission must begin replacement processes within 60 days. Applicants will receive refunds for fees paid to the state. Those included a $7,500 application fee and a $30,000 annual licensing fee, although approved social equity applicants had their first-year licensing fee waived. The state will not reimburse private expenses such as rent, legal services, or business planning. The law also rewrites social equity eligibility. Instead of relying mainly on Rhode Island residents or a designated neighborhood, the program will focus on businesses that are at least 51% owned by people affected by cannabis arrests or other enforcement, including comparable cases outside Rhode Island. The change may resolve the central legal challenge, but the lawsuits have not been reported as ended. And while regulators must restart within 60 days, no deadline has been reported for awarding the licenses or opening the stores.
In Virginia, the adult-use cannabis debate is moving into an unexpected venue, the state budget. Governor Abigail Spanberger has indicated that she could support a regulated retail framework as lawmakers search for a way through stalled budget talks before the June 30th deadline. Virginia legalized adult possession in 2021, but never created a legal recreational sales system. Lawmakers tried again this year. Their bill would have launched sales in January 2027, authorized as many as 350 stores, and imposed a 6% state tax. Existing medical cannabis operators could have entered the market after paying a $10 million conversion fee. Spanberger vetoed that proposal in May. She called the timeline rushed and the store cap too high. Her alternative would have delayed sales until July 2027, capped the market at 200 stores through 2029, limited cultivation facilities to 70,000 square feet, and raised the tax to 8% in mid-2029. Lawmakers rejected those changes and did not have enough votes to override her. Now, cannabis may become part of a larger budget bargain. The main dispute involves data center tax exemptions, valued at about $2 billion in potential annual revenue. No cannabis compromise has been announced, and one Republican senator has objected to making policy through the budget. Meanwhile, the medical market is consolidating. Arboretum, Virginia now controls 2 of 5 regional permits after acquiring operations from the Cannabis Company and Air Wellness. That represents about 40% of Virginia's reported $180 million medical cannabis market. The House returns June 18th, the Senate returns June 22nd, and lawmakers face a June 30th budget deadline.
That's it for this week's Cannabis Policy Update. The through line this week is control. Control over packaging, control over retail access, control over intoxicating hemp products, control over medical eligibility, and control over who gets to participate in legal cannabis markets. For businesses, the message is that compliance risk is rising, even where markets are expanding. For patients and consumers, access remains uneven and often depends on where state lawmakers, regulators, courts, and local governments land next. New episodes drop every Saturday at 9 a.m. Subscribe to the podcast, hit like if you already listen, and join us next week for the latest developments across cannabis law, policy, and regulation.